here I am at church, Sunday morning, and there's so much that can be done. I have to do shopping still. Oh, how am I going to find the time for shopping? Oh, I got to go to the bank first. I forgot to go to the bank yesterday. I got to go to the bank first. I got to get up the money to go shopping. And then, oh God, why didn't I go early? Why didn't I just skip church today and go to the mall early so that I could beat everybody else there? Now it's going to be so crowded, and I'm going to have to push my way through, and I'm going to get mad at people, and then I'm going to get so mad, and I have my in-laws coming for dinner. Oh God, help me! Why am I here? Amen. Who here, maybe not today because it's still pretty early, but who here had
yesterday at White Oaks?
Yesterday at White, actually, you're not the only one who talked about White Oaks. Now, I went to Long and McQuaid, a music store, and so of course I was in my Mecca, and I got a mandolin too, yeah. But yeah, crowded, packed, you could barely move in there. My son said, I don't like it when there's so many people because I don't like to play in front of so many people and I can't relax. And I don't want to then leave because I'm here. I'm home. Anyway, back to my point. And you may not feel that right at the beginning, but that grows. And it may not just be the church setting, but in this season, the most common response of the majority of people is stress. Busy. There is so much to do and so little time to do it. And so we get lost in the season. We get lost. And I don't want to sound the least bit judgmental here, please, don't think that. But we get lost in the cultural celebration. Let's be honest, the celebration of Christmas itself is one of the least important Christian celebrations. In fact, it wasn't celebrated probably until about the 6th century. It is the latest of the Christian festivals to be honored by the Universal Church. And many Christian groups throughout history, including the Puritans that came from England to the United States, refused to celebrate it. In Puritan New England, it was a crime to celebrate Christmas. What's that?
Go to the stocks.
You go to the stocks, yeah. And stocks are not a pleasant experience, especially if you think about the time of year and the cold in New England along the eastern seaboard. That's not a pleasant experience. Why was it illegal though? Well, because they saw it as an excuse from where they came from to engage in a cultural celebration that took away from the real meaning. So that they were not even allowed to celebrate Christmas. And I do argue too, myself, don't get me wrong, I love Christmas. It took me, I'll tell you my story in a moment, but no, I'll tell it now. When I grew up, when I grew up, I never liked Christmas. I wasn't a Christian. I didn't grow up in a Christian family. Christmas was strictly a cultural celebration. It was about gifts under the tree and about having to put up with in-laws to get more gifts under the tree. And I never liked it. I always felt something was wrong with it. Something was missing. And my mother would spend piles of money. My father would say, we're talking back in the early 80s, my father would say, here's $500 for a family of 4 for Christmas. My mother would spend $2,000. I love that one. What? And I know you want to ask the secret later, so but something always felt wrong. Something felt like it was missing. And then I would come to Christ. And now it took on a new significance. Now it was what it was supposed to be. But in the midst of that, I saw the cultural celebration overcoming the potential joy of the season. I saw the caricature that I played for you up here. People stressed and running around and getting angry at each other. And This isn't what it's about. Now, I used to get angry at how our culture celebrated Christmas. And so to this point, I still say, please pray for those people 20 years ago who had to put up with my preaching through the season of Advent. Because God knows they need it. And then I came to a point where, why, Troy, you're getting just as stressed as everybody else. What are you accomplishing? You're just blowing away like a leaf in a windstorm. Absolutely no significance whatsoever. And you're not reaching people. You're not touching people. You're just barking away like an angry dog. Scrapping. But that was the year, I don't remember what year it was, but that was the year I first fully enjoyed Christmas. Amazing. Here I am in my mid-40s, halfway through, if I'm lucky, maybe 2/3 of the way through my life. And finally, a few years ago, I actually enjoyed Christmas. So I'm not going to bark about the cultural celebration, and I'm not going to get uptight that somebody wants Starbucks to put a cross on their cup rather than just a red cup. And I'm not going to yell if somebody says to me, happy holidays. I'm going to say thank you, and happy holidays to you too. Because we get lost in the stress of the season. And we actually fall into the trap that Jesus mentions. Did you catch that? Let me read that to you again. He says, don't let the sharp edge of your expectation, that is, in his coming again, be dulled by parties and drinking and shopping. Well, isn't that what our culture says the season's about? And we get stressed in the midst of it. But I'm here with good news. We don't have to get stressed. It depends on how we choose to respond. We can get caught up in it. Oh, and that's really easy to just let yourself go in this flood. Or we can intentionally choose to respond otherwise. Most of you have probably heard this story. This is one of my favorite life stories. A few Christmases ago, I got way behind in shopping. Usually I like to get it done even before December comes along, and then I found that helps. By the way, there's a tip. If you get your shopping done, I know it's too late now because we're already at the end of the month, but if you get your shopping done before December, it does make the season a whole lot more relaxing. However, here we are a few days before Christmas, and I'm still not done. And I'm in a panic. So I race to Walmart, and I'm running through. By the way, when you wait that long, you also really don't think about what you're buying. And you can end up getting some pretty strange gifts, like there's the caricature of the guy always getting the silly ties, the dad always getting the silly ties. Well, I think that year my wife might have got the silly tie. So I'm racing through, and then I'm finally ready, and so I get into a line. There's the teller over there. Well, something's gone wrong. Now, I would find out, once I got further up the line, that poor teller faced the nightmare at Christmas. The debit machine went down. Cash transactions only, no debit or credit card. But of course, we're in a really long line. Now, a manager should have gone along the line saying, this is cash only transaction. Instead, we found out when we got closer to the front. Behind me, though, were two ladies who were very upset. And they were very upset with the teller. Poor thing was just doing her job, and facing the same stress that everybody else was facing. But they were upset with her, and I could hear them behind me, stage whispering, "Oh, can you believe this teller? She's got to be the worst teller that I've ever experienced. Can she not move? Do they not train people better here? What kind of education do you need to get a job as a teller in this place?" And they're just going, I'm standing in front of them, I'm getting mad. I'm getting stressed. See, because I wasn't being intentional. And I wanted to turn around and just give it to them. Oh, that would have been just and right. Well, no, it wouldn't have been right. And I'm too kind a person to actually ever do that, or too scared of what may happen if I ever did that. So I didn't do that, but I realized I needed to say something to the teller. I actually wished I had turned around to them and said, You know, it isn't her fault. Things happen. And how do you feel talking like this about somebody else? Does it make you feel better? I wish I had said that. Instead, I said to the teller, making sure that they could hear me, I stage whispered too, that you must have a really tough job, especially this time of year. You know what? I don't know what your religious tradition is, but God bless you for what you have to deal with. And the smile came over her face, I remember so well. That was Christmas for me right there. I could have stopped it all. Just a beautiful moment where I was able to intentionally step out of the typical response, intentionally step out and bless somebody. So here I'm coming to my point now. We're into the stress, coming into the typical Christmas season where marketers are going to shout at you very loudly that you have to spend everything you have in your wallet and everything you have on your credit card and then some more. Because after all, unless your kids get piles of stuff, you're not really doing a good job as a parent. That was my mother's trap, see? Unless you spend all your money on everybody else and give up all your time for everybody else and do everything for everybody else, then you're not really celebrating the season. It's a lie. It's a big, fat lie. And so let me give you now some tips for the Christmas season. I actually have these written down here because I didn't want to miss any of them. So here are the tips, and you know what? I hope you can say to me afterwards, Troy, I know all that. I honestly hope and pray I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. But I also hope and pray that you might be able to cast it into the light of your life and say, hey, I'm going to do this in this situation. So, first of all, crucial point. In this season, do not overbook yourself. There's a temptation to attend parties and events galore. When I look at what the church, any church, does in the Christmas season, and I think, wow, maybe the church should actually during Christmas not do anything. Now, that would mean no Misfits concert, so that's not going to happen. But, you know, we expect people to do so much in the spirit of the season, but be intentional. An invitation can be accepted or gracefully rejected. So be intentional. Don't just try to squeeze everything in, because in this season there's still only 24 hours in a day. And there's still only 7 days in a week. So be intentional about what you put on your calendar. Secondly, and in line with that, be intentional about your family time. Because so often it's easy to let all the other events that are going on distract us from what's really important. So be intentional about your family and your friends' time, because your friends are the family that you choose. Be intentional about that time. Another important one, don't overspend. There isn't a whole lot of joy in the season if you know in 30 days you're going to get the credit card statement. Don't overspend. Now, all of that makes perfect sense, right? Is anybody going to put their hand up and say, Troy, you're dead wrong? All right, but you might during this one. Choose the longest line in the store. I knew something. Thank you. Somebody had to do it. Now, let me explain why you should choose the longest line in the store. It is, what's up? It makes you wait. Develop the spiritual gift of patience. Now, you don't just stand there in the longest line and unintentionally seethe. I'm in this line. Oh, that preacher when I get my hands on him. Choose the longest line so that you can stop and you can breathe and listen. So that conversation that I described to you, the two women behind me, happened very unintentionally. I wasn't listening. But I just ended up in the moment. So instead, listen. Now, you may call it eavesdropping, but it's not really. If a conversation is happening right there in public in Walmart, then you can listen. And listen for the tone. Because you might listen for the faces, the look on the faces. Because you might see somebody who desperately needs to be blessed. You might come across somebody who desperately needs to hear a winning word. This is one of the loneliest times of the year for people as well. And people often need a blessing. Choose that spot, that space where you have to slow down. In the longest line, you have no choice but to slow down. Choose it and pray. Even be intentional about prayer in that moment. God, show me who needs to be blessed around me, because I'm just standing here anyway. So please, God, make me useful. Show me who needs a blessing. Give me that winning word of love. And so, again here, the important point isn't so much choosing the longest line, although it does develop the spiritual gift of patience if we do it prayerfully. But the spiritual fruit, it's not a gift, it's a fruit. So the spiritual fruit of patience, but also that aspect of blessing each other is the most important part of it. And that doesn't have to just be in a long line where you're stuck and not moving. But look for the opportunities around. And let's say this is a dark time for many people. In fact, as of last week, there were 3 people that I know that committed suicide within a week and a half. One of them right out in our parking lot. It is a dark time for people. It can be a dark season. We can be bearers of the light. We can intentionally bring love to people. Whether or not they accept it is up to them. We don't have to worry about that. All we have to concern ourselves with is being the blessing, offering the blessing to others. And if we are intentional about how we spend our time, how we spend our money, if we are intentional about seeking ways to bless people, we'll discover a multitude. And the interesting thing about sharing blessings, you not only bless somebody else, but in blessing somebody else, you bless yourself. It was an amazing feeling. As I said, Christmas could have stopped just with the look on that teller's face that day. That was the greatest gift I'd ever received at Christmas. And I only received it because I intentionally sought to be a blessing to others. And in turn, I was blessed. As we bless others, as we lift up others, we are lifted up. As we love others, we discover the deeper meaning of love. No matter how the other person responds, we discover something deeper about God's world, about God, and about ourselves. And the last thing, and this applies all year round, but I'm going to, because things come to the surface so easily at this time, I'm going to state this one as the obvious. And that is, keep it all in perspective. None of us are getting out of this world alive. Anything that happens during Christmas is not the end of the world. If the turkey doesn't quite come out right, it's not the end of the world. If the tree looks like a Charlie Brown tree, it's not the end of the world. Keep it in perspective. Remember what is important and what is peripheral. Remember that what this season is about. And it's not about pretty, and it's not about trees, and it's not about food being perfect. It's about a blessing that has been given to us and a blessing that we in turn are called to share. Anybody have any questions for me before I say amen? Any comments other than I'm wrong about the longest line? And you know, I do have to say, if one person says it, at least 10% of the crowd are thinking it. So, so I'm sure you're not wrong, Johnny. Exactly. Now I've discovered, actually, quickly thinking about that, when I try to get into the fastest lane on the highway, it slows right down. No matter what lane I'm on the freeway will always be the slowest lane. And, you know, that's where I get frustrated. Does nobody any good, including myself. But so yeah, it's that, you know, intentional about time. So, any other thoughts or questions? If not, then let's join our hearts together in prayer.